Hey, welcome to Evolve with Dr. J. Nicole, and happy Valentine's Day. Today is one of those days where I think a lot of people find themselves feeling down, and instead of experiencing love, which is what this day is meant to honor, right? It's a day of love. I get the sense, not even just the sense, but I know, right? Because I've heard it, I've seen it, I've even experienced it, where people are feeling the complete and utter opposite of love because they don't have what they think love should look like in their life, or what society or what the world tells us that we should be experiencing as love. And this is my first Valentine's Day as a divorced woman. And y'all, it's the best Valentine's Day yet. And it's only it's not even 1 o'clock yet as I'm recording this. And the reason why that is because I let go of what society tells me that love is. I've let go of what it looks like materially. And you might be like, Dr. J, what you talking about? Well, what I did was I have really truly tapped into the love of God. So, no, you may not have a partner. You might be going through a breakup. You might be in a situationship or looking for a connection, but you are not alone. Like, you literally have access to the Valentine. God is the ultimate Valentine, y'all. And I already know it's somebody that's listening to this and they like, man, she crazy. She like, whatever. Like, I want a man, I want a woman, like, whatever. You want a physical material thing. But the thing about it, in order to truly like experience love, you have to first do that with God and allowing God to love you. And loving on yourself is one of those ways that you can absolutely do that, because by you loving on yourself, it is allowing God to love you because you are God. He is on the inside of you. The Holy Spirit is in you. And some of us, we're so, okay, let's get to the root of it before I even go there. I got to slow down, y'all, because it's been flowing this morning. Like, y'all see, I have no makeup on. And even with that, like, I've been conditioned to make things look pretty and to look polished. And, I like a good fresh haircut anyway, but I also love when my hair looks freshly bleached. And I've been wearing it like molded down because I like it because it looks more feminine or whatever. And last night, God told me to like wash my hair. And I was like, okay, bet. So then we ready to bleach. We gonna be fresh for this first recording. And then I got up this morning and I didn't like really feel compelled to do that as much as just like wash my hair and not worry about it. I ain't got no eyebrows on, no mascara, nothing, y'all. This is really me bare face. And I was like, oh, this is so symbolic, because God has been telling me to tell my story. And like I was saying, I've been conditioned to make things like look pretty, or maybe try to present things to be something better than what it is, as a way of like coping, as a way of surviving. It's a way that I got through a lot of the trauma that I experienced having a father who initially did not claim me. He denied me as his child. And baby, so much of this is him. People that know me, you know that this that knows, it's that signature knows. Family, y'all know who y'all are. I ain't going to out y'all in case y'all want nobody to know. I'm telling all y'all business. Well, our business, but he finally came around. But like, as a child, to know that your father is not claiming you, right? That can do something to you. And then, as if that wasn't enough, right? The enemy took my mom too with substance abuse. So we had more than a 30-year separation from the time that I was 6, right? And so you would think that that would have just like completely crushed me and turned me cold. But somehow I still had love to give. But also, what happened as a result of that is that I received messaging that I had to earn love, that I had to do things to show that I was lovable to get them to stay, right? To get them, my father, to want to claim me. Or maybe if I perform well in school, my mom will come, right? So all of this was just like me in my mind trying to figure it out. But I still love people. I loved going to church. I used to, even when I was still with my mom, I'd be like, call Auntie Ruby so I can go to church with her. Like, God's hand has always been on me, and my light never went out despite that initial, those attacks, right? Those are spiritual attacks with what happened with my father when we eventually, got our relationship in sync as best as we could before he left this earth. And my mom, she's been returned. She's been now clean and sober for like 3.5 years. August will make it 4 years. And I'm so proud of her, but also just the repair that we've been able to have, right? So saying all this to say, I share with y'all that I'm divorced. I've not spoken up or spoken out really about my experience and have at least not publicly, like on a platform. Uh, excuse me. But God has been telling me, tell your story, tell your story. And throughout this period of transformation that I've been experiencing, one of my prayers to God has been, Father, show me who to share my story with and what to share. And so that was coming out. Those moments of disclosure were coming out and, smaller segments. And I keep getting this push and keep this thing telling, share my story. God knows how to speak to me, right? And he keeps, it's through music and it's like through what I'm consuming, right? And so, oh, I feel the Holy Spirit. Come on. This gonna get real good, y'all, because like the tears is coming, the Holy Spirit is coming. And so it also has been showing up in my work, which God has blessed me for my, what has always been in me, like my ability to connect with people. God and talk to people. My dear friend, Dr. O has always called me the queen of talk, right? Cause he's like, oh, you can talk. And I was like, well, you talk just as much as me. So that makes you the king of talk, right? That's been our ongoing thing since we, met over, oh my goodness, we're going to be on 20 years soon, friend. Love you, mean it. But, my ability to talk and connect with people, that's been my career. So I am a licensed therapist, right? And so part of being in that position is that you do, it's a responsibility to balance self-disclosure, right? Because you have to have those professional boundaries, but you are also a tool. And me, I'm not a regular therapist. And what I mean by that is that this is my purpose. This is my ministry. And God has been sending me all sorts of wonderful, beautiful, dynamic women who, at the heart of it, are just looking to love and to be loved, where they are loving, but they're not getting it back the way that they desire. And a lot of it, started with attachment, right? So with caregivers and parents, because that's where it is. That's where we have that initial experience of how our needs are being met, the consistency, the lack of it, or even the intentionality. And is it giving us what we need? And so when we don't get those needs met, how we need them, and with the frequency we need them, right? Like then that goes over into attachment styles, which I can explain further another day because God, that's not why God got me here. But I'm just giving y'all that, and I'll give y'all some more food later in that in that topic. And I'm saying this to say that when our parents are inconsistent with doing it, or sometimes they don't, and then you combine those together, that sets a blueprint, if you will, which could always change and be altered, that impacts how we interact in our friendships and our relationships, and it impacts our connections, especially our intimate connections. So with what I share with you, I had a blueprint of abandonment. I had a blueprint of proving that I was lovable. I knew that I knew that I was, but I needed to receive it for other people. So what did that look like in my life? That looked like me hosting events, bringing people together, like, right? Like, cause I received love or experienced love by making others feel loved too, right? But also what I didn't realize is that I was calling in people who could not love me, reinforcing the need to earn love when I'm a child of God. So that means that I am already worthy and deserving of his love. And I don't have to do anything for it, but I was not tapped in. Even though God has had his hands on me and he's always loved me and I've always felt him, I never really truly tapped in. And I, like a lot of people on this day, on Valentine's Day, was looking for something material to experience love rather than tapping into the spiritual with the ultimate Valentine, God, our Father in heaven. And I allowed my experience of attachment, the disappointment of, my caregivers and them doing the best that they could with the circumstances they had, right? So by no means is this an attack on my parents or their parenting styles as much as I didn't have what I need so that I could feel seen, loved, understood, and valued. And when you don't feel valued, you will discount the price of admission to your life. You will give people access to your life that have not earned it, who don't deserve it, just to have a small sense of connection or like get that quick fix to feel loved, right? Like we try to, it's like how, I guess being in situationships, right? Or just kind of like have that person you can call that's like available on demand or whatever. Like if y'all have that type of understanding, it's nothing but a quick fix. And you're going to keep chasing the thing. But the problem is you're engaging with people who are not available, which only reinforces that loneliness, that longing for love. And instead of just like sitting it out, instead of benching yourself, we go to the apps. We're looking for people. We will talk to people we won't normally talk to. We find a reason to qualify people rather than disqualify people, not understanding the true value in what a gift our presence is and what our love is, because we are getting a portion of a need met. And I was talking to a client about this, like that feeling on the inside of you, that thing, the way that you desire to be loved, the way that you like imagine and romanticize love, that's from God. God has given you a preview already of the type of love you deserve and also that he desires for you. But what happens is that our lived experiences, right? Being let down by people, being disappointed, our trust being violated, being betrayed. We take all of that and we project it onto God. And we don't trust him to deliver the vision that he gave to us. But on the other side of that, we've not done our work to heal. We've not really sat down and been in his presence. Like we've not done it because we're constantly distracted. We're constantly scrolling. We are swiping. We are dancing. We are like, the gym is healthy, but too much time in the gym, that's not it either, right? We're escaping through books. We're escaping through watching reality TV, watching other people's life that's messy, making you feel better about your life. I know that's where I spent a lot of my time. And I tell you, that's part of the places where God met me. And I'm going to come back to that later so that he knew that I heard him clearly. And I knew that message was for me. I knew that message was for me. So it's all of that to say, to set the tone for the love deficit. It's that love deficit from what we've had in our earthly experiences and from no one truly modeling the love of God, like spiritual attachment is what I'm calling it, right? So I was talking about all the other styles, but of attachment and insecure attachment, but our spiritual attachment. So what happens is God is trying to show us, God is inviting us in, and he's also waiting for us to invite us in because sometimes we've turned away from him. We have taken that hurt, all those negative deposits from other people, and we project that onto our relationship with God, and we don't trust him to deliver, or we expect him to deliver when we want him to deliver. but we're not even ready yet. Or we try to make it happen. We try to make it happen. And that's what I found myself doing, y'all. So, man, I was under serious spiritual attack in the form of grief from 2014 up until 2019. I experienced back to back to back to back to back losses and experiences of grief. A lot of it was death. Some of it was dear loved ones with cancer. The one that really got the ball rolling was when my 5-year-old niece was diagnosed with leukemia. That thing ate me up from the inside, and I did not turn to God. Not right away. I would pray, but I did not make him my first call. I was trying to handle it on my own because I learned hyper independence. I learned I had to do it on myself because there was no guarantee that my mother or my father was going to come back, right? So I learned to do what I knew how to do, and that was to make it happen. And I also, went to school because education, that's an area where I thrive. So I was attempting to cope, but it also was maladaptive. I was at one too many happy hours. I ain't gonna hold you. I was at one too many happy hours at some point. And even through music, I love music. So I found a place that had a dynamic band and they had great happy hour specials. And I used to be in there every Thursday. And, it felt good in the moment, but it was not getting at what I truly needed. And I wasn't going to church. So I was not being fed spiritually the way that I needed to be. I wasn't in a spiritual community where people were pouring into me the way that I needed to be really poured into. And I was just trying to figure it out. But because I had had a history of abandonment, it was nothing to be out here on my own, trying to do it on my own. And y'all, I got dragged. I got dragged for years. I allowed life to drag me instead of turning to God. And in this low, I met this beautiful man, y'all. Chocolate, 6 foot plus, beautiful smile, muscles. He was Howard educated, like all of that, like all the things that like check my boxes. I didn't realize I had boxes to be checked and what I wanted things to look like, right? So don't lose this theme of materialism that I'm giving here, y'all. Like, and again, that's why I'm here raw, bare face, black roots, boom. And we had this fast connection. And there were so many things that were so good and how, in the beginning, like he was so open, he was so available and he had, he like everyone else had lived experiences of hurt too, where people had deeply disappointed him and it left scars, right? And he shared his truth with me. And my own love deficit said, oh, he just needs to experience love. He just needs to know that I'm committed to him. He'll feel safe. Let me create a safe environment for him. What I didn't realize is that in that moment, when I came to that realization, which is, admirable, and it was an expression of the character of God's love, the character of Jesus and loving people, right? But I took it too far. I overstepped because it was not my responsibility. And so in doing that, in that moment, I stepped into that, but it was also me living my attachment wounds, feeling like I had to earn love. So that started a cycle of me always trying to meet his needs. And what that also meant is that I was willing to sacrifice myself. I even sacrificed my relationship with God. And me and God have talked about this. I repented, gave him a good apology about this because we attended church together. I think we might have gone together like 2 times. And I thought I was trying to be a good Christian and allow him to lead. So when he went to join me at the church that I am a member of, um, I almost said was because I was away for so long. But like once you're in, once you're you're in, right? Like I am a child of God and God was with me this whole time, even when I was getting dragged. But like he shared feedback with me that like he didn't feel fed, like in that, he didn't feel like it was a match for him. So in that moment, I was like, okay, well, surely he's going to lead, right? Because he knows God. Like he had, like, the foundations. He went to like a Methodist school and, we talked about things and he would read his Bible and stuff, but a lot of that stuff we didn't do together. So I just thought from that Sunday, I was like, okay, well, he'll then find a solution. He's going to give us a new home. He is going to lead us. I'm going to have a man that's a spiritual leader. That's how the enemy will get y'all, right? That was a very counterfeit thought that I had, that this is what happened. One thing about our relationship is that he was very good at pointing out problems. You need that. But me needing to earn, I would be the fixer. So you know what that meant. He would typically point out problems that impacted him, not necessarily us for the greater good, but it also meant that his participation in the repair of the relationship, the rebuilding, reestablishing kind of like that severed connection. Because sometimes when you beef, you need to feel like safe again. His participation did not match, but he was really good at pointing it out. So we have this pattern, and I like a good like metaphor or analogy. Think of it as we have a point of contention, right? So that takes bricks away from our wall that we're building. And so I'm quick to try to put the bricks back in. And initially he was putting bricks back in too. But somewhere in there, I know where. I'm not going to spend the time on the story, but there was an event that triggered him. And honestly, I think that was God telling me this was not a safe space for you, the way he reacted to the events. But I, again, that attachment, that love deficit said, well, I can fix it. I can show him. I can make him believe he doesn't have to leave. Like I can make him feel safe when what he needed was God. What he needed was God. Excuse me, y'all. I'm trying to reposition over here. What he needed was God's love. Not mine. Not mine. But Jeannie, it made me feel love. It made Jeannie feel love to be able to make someone else feel love or to heal others. And that set us in a very negative cycle where I took on the emotional responsibility, in the relationship and trying to heal someone who needed to heal themselves. And I still have my own healing to do, y'all, because I was going through loss and grief. And the way in which that loss and grief was wreaking havoc on me and making me unavailable in certain ways, he interpreted, this is my interpretation, right? And we talked about this in marriage counseling, because I committed to every form of reconciliation that could be to um feel like it was okay to walk away when my lived experiences were enough, and that's a whole other thing, right? Which also gets at at my like that blueprint that was laid on me through my attachment experiences. So I okay, Rocco. So wow, I got thrown off a little bit, and then my little baby Rocco here, he came over here to jump in my lap. So y'all for real getting the raw today. Um, and I guess that's what's important to start, is to start with authenticity. And God has told me to take off the mask. Take it off. Tell the people you don't have to be ashamed. There are people out here who need to hear this. So I was saying this like kind of set us on this pattern where I took over the emotional responsibility, and you can't heal somebody. You can't. You cannot heal somebody. You can help them heal, but they have to be committed to doing something different and to want to do something different. And so, as a result of like, this pattern that we had and me not being able and or willing, I need to sort through that to find out if it's able or willing or a combination of both. I think it was more willing. I was able. I wasn't willing to let go because that love deficit. I felt like I had someone who had all the things and I saw the potential that we had, but the potential could only work if he was also ready to do a lot of the work that like I did. Cause like I said, I was getting dragged. And he said it to me. He told me I need to get myself together emotionally. And I knew he was right. And I got it there. Like I had gone in and out a couple of times. Like when I'd have like an immediate thing. But I was just like, no, I had to commit to doing the work and changing behaviors and things like that because how I was showing up in the relationship, it made him feel unloved. It made him feel unappreciated. It made him feel undervalued. But what he didn't realize is a lot of that was grief. And when you're in grief, depression is a common part of that. So I did not have the availability or the emotional capacity to do so. And for him, part of his, what I understood and understand about his blueprint is he also felt like, well, if I do more, surely she'll see me. And he also kind of verbalized this. If I do more, surely she'll love me. Surely she'll reciprocate. So he was misinterpreting his experience to be about him when it was really an experience of my grief. And when I learned that, when that came out in the therapy sessions, the marriage therapy sessions, like it kind of broke my heart that he was internalizing my grief, even though he knew, right? And I told him, but I didn't explicitly say, this is how I experience grief. It's this, that, because I was in it. Grief was having its way with me. And he also didn't ask questions. He also didn't express, this is how I'm feeling. And so can you imagine how it feels to be the person who is doing all these things and trying to perform to be seen and for a reaction? That's gotta be incredibly lonely and isolating. And yes, I do have empathy for him. We were two people who got together, who deserve and desire love, but we still had healing to do. And I also feel bad, y'all. Because I was like, he's not getting the best version of me. He doesn't know the version of me. That's the mover and the shaker. The person who came to Howard University, got deeply involved. It was helping people, got involved in DC politics, turned at the White House, like doing all the stuff. Like I had done something what other people thought was probably crazy. I left a full-time job working at University of Maryland to go work at a makeup counter in Macy's so that I could get this education, go to Howard and get my master's of social work, right? Nobody understood it, but it was part of, that's how I'm here with you today, right? Um, I was this different person, this go-getter, this natural leader, and just like willing to do the things and sacrifice and to do some of what didn't make sense. And he didn't know that version of me. My light was still there, right? Because that ain't gonna never go out. That never went out. But I feel bad. And then I feel like I had something to prove. I had something to prove. But by this time, y'all, there was so much resentment from him. I don't doubt that he still loved me at that point, right? Um, but there was so much resentment, and resentment comes from a lack of expression too, right? When a violation has occurred of boundaries or our needs are not being met and it's not expressed, and then if it's not met and then we still stay, like, right? And we give people an opportunity to, that's part of where resentment comes from, right? And so this resentment was building for years. And now that I'm waking up, that I'm coming out of this season of grief, and I'm like, man, it's time to pour in. So I started pouring in self-sacrificially. So what did that look like? That looked like me putting my doctoral studies secondary to say, I'm putting family first. But y'all, that's not healthy. To be in relationship, you have to sacrifice what matters to you. But it wasn't something he asked me to do, y'all. I'll say that too. It was something I felt like I had to do because I was operating out of shame. I was operating out of guilt. And y'all, when I woke up, I was like, and he leaned in, y'all. He leaned into it. Like, yeah, she didn't give me what I need. So now he felt wrong. He felt as an injustice, but he never even knew that version of me to know that he was cheated or feel cheated to justify feeling cheated. Because then I feel that I believe that that's part of the narrative he told himself that now he was cheated because, yes, she's telling me from her own mouth that she was this better, more vibrant person. And me saying I'm sorry and acknowledging it justified the mistreatment, which I watered the resentment, y'all. I watered the resentment. Look, it's clicking right now. I watered the resentment. I put the battery in his back to say that I had mistreated him, that I had intentionally undervalued him, that I had intentionally violated him because he will often be upset with me. And I try to tell him, I'm not your enemy. I'm not your enemy. But with his hurt, his trauma that he came with, and his frame of mind, and what he would tell me, if somebody stepped on my foot, I'm coming for their neck. I heard him, y'all, but I didn't listen. Heard him, but I didn't listen. He told me how he operates. He told me this is not a safe space for you. And I kept going. Why did I keep going, y'all? Because I have been conditioned to be comfortable with and love emotionally unsafe, emotionally dangerous spaces. And that happened in my neighborhood. It also happened in my family. I love y'all, but a lot of us are programmed, it's the things that like, don't nobody care about your feelings. What you crying for? All of those things, those are invalidation. All of those things lack empathy. I also know that this is passed down through generations and that it's hard sometimes for people to give you the love you need when they never got it themselves. And so for some people, they just get with the program. They harden, they shut off those parts of themselves, and they say, well, why am I doing all of this to get hurt, to get slapped, to have my feet stepped on when I'm going to step on your feet before you can step on mine? Or I'm telling you this thing because the world don't care about you. Do you understand what happens when you can take in those messages? Or those messages are in you and you're not even aware of how they are working and how it is impacting the way in which that you are operating? These were subtle things that were in there that were woven into my blueprint and my framework. And so it was like a perfect storm. Y'all, I was in an emotionally abusive relationship and I didn't know it because I had been already in emotionally abusive, emotionally unsafe, emotionally unhealthy spaces with the people who were supposed to love. Again, this is not calling anybody a bad person as much as it is that people were doing the best that they could. And if they were raised in an environment where they weren't loved the way that they needed to be loved, it wasn't soft, it was hardened, it was all these other things that made them feel undervalued, unimportant, that they need to accept what they can get. Those things get transferred through generations, y'all. And man, it was years and years of this. And I remember one time me and him were watching TV. We were watching a dating show because I love watching stuff like that and analyzing human behavior And I've always been a hopeful romantic. Like, I want to have my own dating show, y'all. I got a whole idea for that, but stay tuned for that another day, another time. This ain't the time. But I remember him saying we were watching one of these shows, and we see the patterns when I watch these reality shows. This is also data informing this concept that I talked about with the love deficit, and that'll have to be a whole separate episode for another day. But the love deficits were clear, and I remember him saying one time clearly, and it stuck with me, and God gave me a pause. He said, women don't know when to let go. Or he said, women don't know how to let go. No, it was when. He said, women just don't know when to let go. And I was like, and it hit me. And it was about TV, but it felt like a message. But I, wanting to see what I want to see, hear what I want to hear, live in my bubble, dismissed it, but it stayed with me. We were at a point where we were on thin ice. Because what I said to him, because I responded, because we talking about the TV, right? We're not talking about us, but it was. I said, well, yes, we were watching Ready to Love, the first season with Aaron and what was her name? Miranda, Michelle, something with an M. She was the older, beautiful chocolate lady with the short haircut. If you watch it, you know who I'm talking about. I'll put it in down below who I was talking about. And I might insert the scene that we watched because Aaron had did all of this stuff to get this woman's attention. He's texting her every morning, basically love bombing her. Aaron was just there to win the show. Aaron was not there for love. He wanted to just be there. And I do think that he wants to be loved, but like he has healing to do. And it's not uncommon for people to like relationship hop or go into these different situationships so that you can get those feelings that you get in the beginning, like you get the oxytocin release, you get the dopamine, you get all that good stuff that comes when you're like in new love, budding love, and it feels exciting. Well, Aaron didn't really like her. When he would be in the gentleman's lounge, he did not see a future for her, but he was engaging her anyway. He hit her with the future fake. Like he gave this woman false hope. He was telling her all the things that she wanted to hear to fall for him. But then when it got too serious, he tried to blame her and act like it was her fault, right? And so I responded, and because he was saying she doesn't know how to let go. And I was like, but you're saying this, watching this from the outside, knowing both what Aaron is doing and saying, and then what she's doing and saying, and that they're living different experiences. She doesn't know that. So it's clear to you, she has no indication that's telling her to let go because he's presenting it to be this. It's a facade. He's presenting it to be this way. So we're talking about the show, but it was kind of about us. He was passive aggressively telling me he didn't want to be here anymore. Basically that he's here still because I was holding on. And I was, y'all. Because again, I wasn't about to let go of my checklist. I had it. He was tall. He was handsome. He was chocolate. He spoke different languages. He was like working on finishing his PhD. We had the HBCU love story, the Bison love story. Like, we traveled the world together, y'all. Who want to give that up? And I shared a part of my story recently when I was home and I was with my childhood friend group. And I was like, yeah, we went to Thailand for like a month. She was like, y'all went to Thailand for a month and you let him go? Yeah, girl. Like, to me, I was like, what you talking about? But that's what I'm saying, right? Like, sometimes we will settle for what looks good on the outside. And I had done a lot, but I was trying to clean it up. Once I cleaned up and got my inside together, or at least together enough, what I thought, then I was like, okay, let me start pouring everything into the relationship, because he ran with the narrative and he like kind of gaslit me that like I had to take ownership of the relationship. And I took it on because it was consistent with my programming. Gotta earn the love, right? So now it's my time to do the work. I said to him, you've carried us. It's my time to carry us. Girl, that's crazy. Looking back, that was so wild, but that's where my programming was because I had not really tapped in with God, y'all. So, long story short, he finished his doctorate, like, and he's job searching, and he was excited about the possibilities. Like, the world is your oyster. You're in the top 2% when you have a PhD. Like, you really are like a part of an elite group at that point. That doesn't mean you engage in elitism, right? But you have to acknowledge that there is privilege that comes from that. So his mind is thinking global, but it was all over the place because it's two people. Because one moment we talking about California, another moment we talking about Abu Dhabi, but from the beginning of the relationship, he had been talking about Atlanta, and the particular organization he wanted to go work for. But then I noticed this was not coming up in conversation like that anymore. And then it was DC, and then it was Tennessee, and it was all over the place. And I was trying to be a doting wife, a good wife, and again letting him lead. And I'm like, okay, we can go wherever. But then I had to tell him, this is a lie because we need to narrow this down because it's not just you. And I shared with him, I said, my biggest fear is that we do this move and one of us, which was really me, doesn't have a job because I already knew he wasn't going to do that. He would not go and not have a job. So I wasn't being direct enough, but I know he understood what I was saying, that like we need to narrow this down so it can be focused so that my energy made sense because I was behind him. Because remember, y'all, I had put the relationship in front of everything. And I still had time to go. I still need to finish my dissertation, right? Like, and I was holding myself back and with for many other things, right, that were going on. But it was making me uncomfortable because again, y'all, that hyper independence, I have to take care of myself. Mom and daddy didn't come back to do it, right? So the idea of being fully dependent upon him was also scary, but also there have been experiences where financial threats were made, where there was a sense of financial unsafety that was also there. And again, y'all, I continued to stay because I had to earn, is what I thought. So we had a conflict, we had an argument about something, and his way to take control was to apply to jobs outside of the three areas we had narrowed it down to. Okay. And I didn't know. And I found out about it. I'm coming home from like going to get a mani and pedi, and he shows me his laptop. And he has a email from a really high ranking research organization, top like cancer, they do that, right? Like, so having them on your resume is like that for a postdoc, right? Also, postdocs don't pay that much money, y'all. But this is located in New York City, not upstate, New York City. So I'm seeing this. One, I'm having the immediate reaction like, what the heck? We said we were focusing on these three areas. Where did New York come from? Right. And then two, this is freaking amazing, right? Because I decided to be curious. Tell me more about this. And I was like, oh, I didn't share it. I was like, I didn't know you had applied, but y'all, I had already been conditioned to bring my energy down because if I get too upset, I would set him off. So it wasn't a safe space for me to express. So I was like, okay, let me like try to regulate again, I'm taking on the emotional load of the relationship. Can't do that. Can't do that. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So I also feel like this was an attempt because remember, he said women don't know when to let go. He was hoping, this is my belief, y'all. I believe that he was hoping for me to blow up. he was hoping for me to hold him accountable. But I've been born a peacemaker. You can ask my brother. People used to joke and make fun of me as a kid and call me the peacemaker. Because I was always the one trying to resolve conflicts. So bear with me, y'all. I gotta grab my charger because I gotta keep going. This is flowing real good, and I'm just letting it flow out, and it ain't gotta be pretty. It ain't gotta be pretty. So, and it's like he's trying to set me up. He's trying to get a reaction out of me because he wanted a justification to say I'm leaving, or that I would say I wasn't willing to come to New York. And thus it would be the slow breakdown of the relationship, a breakdown of the marriage, or that maybe I would pull the plug because he had gone too far. But that didn't happen, y'all. Because I was like, okay, well, you tell me about this. Are you really excited about this? Is this what you really want to do? Because what I didn't want later is for him to try to blame me and say he passed up this opportunity because of me, because I didn't want to go to New York, right? But this is also the same person who encouraged me to turn down a really significant opportunity that aligned with my research. So my dissertation research focused on the experience of African American political social workers, women specifically. And I had an offer to be a chief of staff for a state senator that was also a social worker. So if you know anything like about politics and in the state of Maryland, because we were living in Maryland before moving to New York, you know that it can, like, those sessions can last long. And it meant that I would be spending a lot of time in Annapolis. And sometimes it would not be ideal for me to come home, or I'd be having to drive home really late or whatever. And I was working in a mental health clinic at that time. And so he knew exactly what my research and everything was. And um he figured out a way to logically talk me out of it, right? Where he was able to take some truths and distort them. So what was clear is that the salary was going to be lower than, so he knew the salary was going to be lower than what I was making at the clinic. And so he used that to make a compelling argument to not take the job, right? And I felt it on the inside that I should still pursue it, but it also made sense, y'all. And again, like I said, I had put the relationship before everything. And I also know that I would have never done that to him, right? And then I had to turn around and live it. And where I didn't do that to him, and I packed my stuff up and went to New York, and I pivoted. But this is how God works, y'all. So I ended up finding a remote job, because one good thing that came out of telehealth is that you could be licensed in the state and support people in the state, but you didn't have to be there, but your license covered you as long as the people were in the state that were receiving services in the state where you're licensed, right? And so I was able to find a contract position where I could live in New York and work and didn't have to go through everything. Now, I did get licensed in New York, and I'm still licensed in New York. And but I never ended up practicing in New York because I found the opportunity here. And so I pivoted and I moved with him. But again, in my heart of hearts, I knew he wasn't going to choose me over the job. I really do, like, looking back. But I used stuff that was also valid to, like, justify staying, right? Like, it was an awesome opportunity. And I do believe that as a spouse, a partner, that you should support your person when it's like these, it's not a common opportunity that he was faced with. And I can practice therapy anywhere, right? Like, I can get a social work related job anywhere because people are in need everywhere. So I found a way to make it livable for me, but I had definitely betrayed myself when I went ahead and declined that opportunity. But y'all, God be working. He be working because me going into that remote setting, that set the framework and exposed me to um a way of operating and running a business completely remote, which is now the space that I'm in, which is how I'm here with you today on this podcast and on my channel here to talk about my experiences and to be able to tell you about healing from abusive and narcissistic relationships, whether you realize that you're in one or not, because I was a mental health professional in the abusive relationship and didn't know it. Didn't know it. I didn't know it. So come back for part two. You'll be able to find that. I'll put the link below, or figure out how to link it in here because y'all know I'm still new. But part two is coming. There's a whole lot in here. There's actually 3 parts to this. So please come back. We got cut off initially here because my phone overheated. But it's good. And if y'all enjoyed this and if it blessed you, if it benefited you, if it resonated with you, make sure you like, subscribe, and share. The idea is for this to like bless anybody, to help people feel seen, heard, understood, and valued, to get the support that they need. I think too, like me being a clinician and living through this, that this has given me lived experiences to be able to connect with my clinical and my social work education to be able to help people to be in healthy relationships, healthy friendships. And I was my ultimate case study. I lived it, recovered from it, and I'm here to share this and to give you tools to help you thrive and find the love and healthy relationships that you deserve and desire.